戦争は変わった。一つの時代が終わり、俺たちの戦争は終わった。
War has changed. It's no longer about nations, ideologies, or ethnicity. It's an endless series of proxy battles fought by mercenaries and machines. War and its consumption of life has become a well-oiled machine. War has changed. Verified soldiers carry algorithmic arms, manipulate social influence, AI enhance and regulate their timelines. Memetic control, information control, emotion control, battlefield control. Everything is monitored and kept under control. War has changed. The age of deterrence has become the age of control, all in the name of averting catastrophe from weapons of mass destruction. And he who controls the battlefield controls history. War has changed. And when the battlefield is under total control, war becomes routine.
Think outside the cage.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Crime News Talk.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk. It is May 25th, 2026. Beast Seed Sprouting. Episode number 934 today. My name is Gonz, at Face Like the Sun, director of the Age of Deceit films and author of Prophecy Without Panic, Recovering the Patterns Behind Biblical Prophecy. Your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ, live to tape from the metaverse to bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. It's Monday.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Yes, and as you can tell, I am solo today because Basil got stuck somewhere in the time warp. His time machine had a breakdown and he is unable to figure out the configurations properly to attend today's episode. So we were either going to call it off for Memorial Day, or I said, I'll just do it solo, bro. I got you. So here I am. There's plenty to talk about. As you can see, there's lots of topics to cover today from over the weekend. But happy Memorial Day for those of you out there. If you're at home, if you're spending time with family and friends and you're barbecuing or you're at the pool or something like that, thank you for being here and checking us out, even though it's a day off for you. But, this type of job, I suppose, this calling of breaking stuff down like this, it's a daily thing. There's no stopping or pausing or, we're only live a couple times a week or maybe 2-3 times a week, but technically the job never stops. We're always working. We're always looking at what's going on, and it is exhausting at times, but it's one of these things that we signed up for. So we're grateful for the opportunity to be in this present age where we get to analyze all these different topics from a biblical perspective. And of course, a lot of the mainstream topics these days are topics that we have been covering for almost 2 decades. Crazy to kind of say that, but I'm getting old. I got gray hairs coming in and everything. And it's just wild to see so many things that we discussed 15 years ago, a lot of it dismissed from our peers and our sort of elders at the time. I know Basil and I bring this up often, but early on in the Canary Cry radio era, the first, I guess, 1 or 2 episodes were recorded at the studio that was at the church where we met and where we worked. And it was off hours. We weren't on the clock or anything like that. We were both techs at this church. But we just simply asked, like, hey, can we borrow this gear? We're going to record a podcast. And they said, sure, no problem. And then they checked out the website and checked out what we were talking about. And they told us it's not kingdom work. They said, this is not advancing the kingdom. So we decided to not record at that church anymore. But that's okay, because the mission persisted. And here we are 15, 16 years later. We're still at it. And, well, what do you know? The topics we were covering is front and center mainstream. And it's two aspects to that that's important. One is that, we are some of the unique voices out there to be able to address. When I say we, not just me and Basil, I'm talking a lot of people who are here listening, who's in the chat, who have been with us all this time, a lot of loyal people to the cause here, as well as others who have nothing to do with the show, but likewise have been talking about these topics. We are uniquely positioned to comment on these issues because of the fact that we've been looking at it for so long from a grounded biblical perspective. So there's one aspect of that where we have some informed opinions about these things and things that have not been considered, or things that are not being considered by the general public or people new to the topic. They might be freaking out about this or that for the first time, which is okay. That's fine. That's normal. There's always an iteration of new people coming in to learn about these issues from the biblical perspective. So that's naturally going to happen. So that's one aspect of it, how we're positioned to discuss these things. But the other aspect of it is to also not fall behind, right? We're always looking at, hey, what's next? What's projected to come? As a watchman, you see something coming over the horizon, you warn the people about that thing, and we've been doing that for 15 years. And now that is at the gates, or beyond the gates, it's inside the walls of the castle or whatever it is. Those topics are here. We're talking about it now. It's public. We have to keep our eye on the horizon still, because there are other things happening. And so that's an important aspect to what we do here. So appreciate everybody who's here. Again, it's Memorial Day. That's one aspect of it. Let me pull up some other things here. There are, every day is so many things nowadays, right? So today it's also, oh boy. Well, okay. It's Geek Pride Day. All right. Why? Okay. Congratulations to the geek who have pride. All right. It's National Tap Dance Day. So if you know how to tap dance, you can do that with your friends and family and say, hey, it's not just Memorial Day. It's also National Tap Dance Day. And it's also African Liberation Day. So there's that. So fun, good times. A lot of things going on all the time. And again, if you missed it at the top there, Basil is stuck in a time warp. Dysfunctional time travel vehicle has caused him to miss out on today, but that's okay. We can keep it moving here. We can keep it going. One quick announcement. If you did not see, I am starting a new Bible study. It's going to publish every Sundays. Right now, it's going to be pre-recorded. At some point, I might just do it live. But for now, it's going to be a pre-recorded situation. And it's going to basically be a Bible study going through the topic of my book that I've been writing for the last at least 6 months, Prophecy Without Panic, Restoring the Patterns of Bible Prophecy. And I'm not going to rant about it too much here, but basically it's going to go through the foundations of how I look at world events, because I think traditionally we've had a lot of people coming out of dispensationalism, pre-trib rapture type of views who are commenting on world events. And I've noticed a pattern. I think a lot of us here are pattern recognition experts. And the pattern has been every conflict in the Middle East, it's end times. This is Ezekiel 38. Or they at least ask the question, right? Is this Ezekiel 38? Is this end times happening right now? And of course, the topic is relevant because the geographical nature of where things are happening in the Middle East. So I don't blame people for bringing that up, but they tend to sensationalize a lot of that. Or you can go off the deep end of, hey, we're date setting. Hey, on this date, something's about to go down, right? And I think I'm putting together a social media post on that. But effectively, the predictions, like the date setters, they are literally for however many dates have been set over the course of time. And that's pretty remarkable, to be 0% hit rate on that. That's its own kind of miraculous thing, At least they say a broken clock's right twice a day, right? But with end times date setting, it's literally 0, absolute 0. So I think it's time for us to approach end times prophecy with a little bit more grounded, not just an approach, but really a framework to address, because there are a lot of world events taking place that are relevant to Bible prophecy and eschatology. It's undeniable to a certain level, but I think we have to be cautious about, number one, setting dates. And I know a lot of people don't, but people tend to overstate the sort of urgency of certain things. But of course, I think there's a proper posture to have, expecting the Lord to return. Not necessarily imminency, but that gets into some technical stuff I'm not going to get into here. But then also the other problem on the other side, which is completely dismissing all of it because they're just so tired of it, or they look at the book of Revelation and they're like, hey, this is confusing, and they don't want to get into it. So I think there's a happy medium here, and I think there's a way to address a lot of things that are unfolding right now in the world and point to how it is biblically and eschatologically relevant without dying on the hill of any one interpretation. And this might upset the cart on many people's end times views, but my hope is that through this Bible study, my logic and my thought process as to how I got to this sort of position is laid out, but also that it honors all the different views, because I believe all the different views are sincere in their study and their desire to proclaim the gospel and, warn the people and all these things. So I don't want to dismiss that. I don't want to dismiss that aspect of it. So I think it's a way to honor those perspective and all the different views without completely buying into it, but also, not dismissing it entirely, because a lot of people are doing one or the other. They're either fully bought into a certain view or fully dismissing it. And there's a more nuanced approach to all of it. And so the Bible studies will be weekly. There is a paywall for it. I know, paywall, big deal. Everything's been free for 15 years, and all of a sudden I'm asking for a paywall, or I'm asking for a little bit of support for that. $5 a month will get you into the Bible studies. Again, every week on Sundays, probably about an hour and a half, depending on the week. But $10 a month is basically a little bit higher tier. You're going to get a PDF every week, an outline of the study. And that's to actually encourage you to go out there and lead your own Bible studies based on this work. And I encourage everybody to do that. I encourage you to simply edit stuff, make it your own. I don't care. Take it all. As far as that level goes, it's like, hey, the paywall is sort of a resource type thing. It's more for you to go out there and make disciples, right? So that's part of the goal, is not just to silo everybody, but to ensure that people are equipped so that they can teach in their local communities, in their churches, and so on. So there's that. Also, the $33 a month level on the Patreon for Face Like the Sun. That'll I think there's only 33 seats in there. Basically, it'll allow you to have your name as part of the publishers or writers or authors of the book, or co-authors, the group of co-authors when the book is published. And this is the other part of it. I'm going to flush through everything through Bible study and work on the book with you, the final version. It's all sort of written. Actually, it is written, but I think processing it with everybody together is a great way to not just anticipate for the release of the book, but also to ensure that, that I don't have any loose ends and stuff. Because there's always topics coming up, like even after the final, not final draft, but this current draft, I'm learning different things, different topics are coming up, different aspects that I want to work in. And, it's one of those issues where I don't know if I can get everything in there. The first round of the book may not be capable to get everything in one study, but we'll see. And I'm looking forward to publishing that for the patrons and tackling this topic because it's relevant. And so, without further ado, oh, by the way, producers of today's episode, you will be properly thanked on the next episode. So, I see there's lots of obviously producers every episode. Actually, last episode was a little weak, but today I know there's some people coming in. There's some new nights, new people for the roundtable and stuff. So there are definitely some thank yous that need to go out, but we will do that properly. I think, especially with new members of the roundtable, you want Basil reading off that thing. You don't want me stumbling my way through it. So look forward to that. So that allows me to just kind of rant for a couple hours on all the different topics going on. So let's dive into it. Okay. We're going to start off with artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence.
But not just AI, because everyone's tired of AI. This is AI in the context of the Pope.
Space Pope reptilian.
This morning, I woke up to a slew of things being discussed with Pope Leo. This is New York Times. Headline: Pope Leo warns of risk from AI in 42,300-word encyclical. The document marks a powerful foray by the leader of the Roman Catholic Church into the debate about the misuse or overuse of artificial intelligence. So here we are. But in May 2026, when the Pope finally made a statement, an official documented statement about AI. Now, I'm not going to read the whole article here. I'm not going to read the 42,300-word encyclical, but I did go through as much as I could this morning, and I wrote an article actually this morning. I had the blessing of my wife saying, "Hey, go in there, just get it done." So early in the morning, I sat down, I started writing an article after reading through this encyclical, and so I'll read that to you guys as well. But here's what New York Times said. Pope Leo the 14th on Monday set out a sweeping vision for corporate executives, politicians, and individuals who will shape and be shaped by the future of artificial intelligence, warning leaders to safeguard humanity from AI's most disruptive effects. I got to say, Pope Leo, or I guess Pope Francis before him, this would have been very helpful like 10 years ago, not 2026 when there's already a product, there's already AI psychosis out there, there's people marrying AI. I mean, it's kind of as usual, the church is very late to the party, right? They're late to the conversation, which is not surprising, but also maybe on purpose. Leo's declaration came in the form of a papal encyclical, an open letter to, quote, all people of goodwill, that ran to roughly 42,300 words in its English version. It outlined his desire to protect human dignity and agency in an age in which technology threatens to replace humans in many professional and social roles. He presented it alongside Christopher Olah, a co-founder of Anthropic, a major AI developer, in a symbolic gesture of dialogue between leaders of the spiritual and technological worlds. Wow, spiritual, a symbolic gesture. Symbols, of course, the language of the elite, and the top face of spirituality, at least Christian spirituality, and one of the biggest technological, peddlers, Anthropic, coming together for this one, while emphasizing that, quote, technology should not be considered in itself as a force antagonistic to humanity. He wrote that, quote, the pursuit of greater profits cannot justify choices that systematically sacrifice jobs. Okay, so let me finish reading some of this and then I'll respond. Among other things, Leo called for government regulation of the private companies that are driving the development of AI, protection and retraining for workers whose jobs are threatened, education to help students think critically about the technology, action to protect children from violent, hypersexualized, or fake information online that is often generated by AI, safeguards to ensure that humans, not artificial intelligence, remains responsible for all decisions regarding the use of weapons. Above all, he emphasized the importance of retaining a fundamental social role for all human beings. Quote, A society that guarantees employment to only a small fraction of the population, despite having a high level of technological development, risks exposing many to forced inactivity, he wrote. Quote, this creates a paradox of material progress and anthropological regression that undermines the foundations of a just and stable social peace, he added. Leo, presenting the encyclical to a packed hall at the Vatican, said his views had been shaped by conversations with scientists, engineers, and political leaders. He singled out Mr. Ola, with whom he pledged to work, quote, to find a way for humanity in this time of artificial intelligence. Yay, the Pope is defending humanity. Thank you, Pope. Quote, what a great sign of hope it is that in our differences we can still listen to one another. Mr. Ola, who is not Catholic, praised the Pope's initiative, acknowledging that companies like his own need moral guidance to avoid being swayed by, quote, a set of incentives and constraints that can sometimes conflict with doing the right thing. And really, this is the heart of the issue when it comes to AI that, of course, many of us identified 10 years ago. I mean, doing the right thing, what does that even mean in the context of secularism? Because earlier in the article, it said, hey, you can't just go for profit, okay? You got to consider the human being. Okay, well, in the eyes of corporatism, doing the right thing often is for profit. Like whatever's the most profitable is the right thing. Now, the human in a lot of those companies or projects or whatever it might be, they may sacrifice what the corporate standard of the right thing may be to ensure the right thing persists for humanity, right? For mankind. So oftentimes those companies or those individuals who do that are either praised for their decisions because of their braveness to stand up against some kind of corporate status quo, or they are, from the other side, made fun of or dismissed or even delegitimized to some degree because they, in the eyes of corporatism, they're doing the wrong thing. They're not profiting for the, they're not doing the thing that would bring a higher bottom line. They're actually doing something that is detrimental to the bottom line for the sake of human dignity. And so there's an obvious conflict of interest when it comes to AI and the bottom line question. But I think much greater the issue here, and the New York Times obviously doesn't really dig into the sort of eschatological implications and the depth of some of that. But that's why I busted out an article this morning. I sat down, I just ranted on and made an article. It's titled AI, Babel, and the Image of the Beast, Reflection on the Pope's AI Encyclical. And let me read a little bit. I don't necessarily, it's not that long, but I think it's something that will provide a little context into this current situation here. So this is what I said. I read the Pope's encyclical as the creator of the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel, where we explored the connections between institutions like the Vatican and topics such as aliens, UFOs, AI, and emerging technologies through the lens of a biblically grounded supernatural worldview. I feel uniquely qualified to comment on today's developments. And so my first point was that the Pope didn't really go far enough. The current Pope's encyclical on AI frames humanity's technological future through two biblical images: the Tower of Babel and the rebuilding of Jerusalem under Nehemiah. According to the document, humanity now stands at a crossroads. Either we build a new Tower of Babel rooted in pride, control, and homogenization, or we build a civilization grounded in communion, dignity, and God-centered cooperation. Right? So I don't know why these world leaders and politicians and stuff, they can't help themselves with the dichotomy, like the false dichotomy thing, where it's like it's either going to be this or that, which I suppose makes sense as to why when AI writes, they write it in that prose. They always have that it's not X, it's Y type of framing. But I continue here. The encyclical is insightful in many respects, It correctly identifies, just to give the Pope a little cookie, it correctly identifies the dangers of technological concentration, the rise of transnational corporate power, the reduction of human beings into data, and the temptation to create a universal system detached from God. It warns against, quote, and this is in the encyclical, the pretense that a single language, even a digital one, can translate everything, including the mystery of the person, into data and performance, end quote. The Pope, echoing what we said 15 years ago. Hey, guess what? Ones and zeros seem to be dropping the language barrier, everybody. And it seems to be flattening everything, not just language. But yeah, I'm glad the Pope recognizes that. Yet, the Pope does not go far enough in addressing the implications of the centralization of technological power. And he also overlooks the potential pitfalls of the alternative option, namely the idea that we will rebuild Jerusalem in the context of Nehemiah. As I've pointed out over the years, the options increasingly appear to be either an open dystopia or a dystopia framed as a utopia. A common analogy compares Orwell's 1984 with Huxley's Brave New World. You've heard me rant about this for years. Neil Postman, in that famous introduction to his book, Entertaining Ourselves to Death, I believe, talked about this issue. And he actually said that Brave New World was sort of the way we're headed. The pitfalls in the Pope's analysis of AI is that the issue is not merely social or ethical, but profoundly theological and even eschatological. Okay, so I go on here with Babel being about more than simply human pride here. Modern Christians often interpret Babel simply as a story about arrogant humans trying to reach heaven, but the work of the late ancient Near East scholar and author, Dr. Michael S. Heiser, repeatedly argues that Genesis 11 is part of a larger supernatural framework involving cosmic rebellion among the nations and the desire to dethrone God. In the unseen realm, Heiser connects Babel to Deuteronomy 32 and Psalm 82, where the nations are disinherited and placed under lesser spiritual beings or gods after humanity rejects Yahweh. And just as a little side note and rabbit hole here, last week, Michael Heiser went absolutely viral again on the internet. And it was because a few people came out and started to do the same thing they always do when they push back on Mike's work, which is, hey, Mike was pushing polytheism and pantheism, and he was talking about the pantheon of gods and it's confusing Christians and all this stuff. And of course, there were a lot more people defending the proper view that Mike was insisting, and not the straw man that some people were building up and tearing down. And ironically enough, one of the louder voices that were pushing against Mike's work said in his critique, he said, I haven't read his books and I don't know what he believes, but he's wrong. And I thought that was pretty telling as to the spirit of the debate. If you're not going to understand the argument from the opposition, why are you making a case against it? So anyway, I think Mike's work is being brought up again in the context of certain corners of the internet when it comes to, deeper theology and theological inquiry, because it has such explanatory power when it comes to AI, when it comes to aliens, UFOs, all these different fringy topics that are becoming mainstream. It is Mike's work that framed things with the ancient Near East context of the scriptures that helps us really understand what's going on. It's not the only reason, but it's a very helpful tool for believers to use in the context of, hey, well, what about non-human intelligences? How do we even talk about it? Oh, well, that panic comes from a post-Augustinian perspective that shaped Western Christianity, especially in the academic and scholarly sense, stripping the supernatural out of the explanations of things like angels and demons and stuff, taking all that out. And I even saw some people misunderstand that layer of it as well, where the argument was, hey, Mike's not saying anything new. Plenty of commentators after Augustine thought that the Bible has supernatural beings. Like there's nothing new. Angels exist, demons exist. Well, I think there's, again, people are misunderstanding what Mike was suggesting. Mike wasn't saying, "Oh, I discovered angels and demons and the supernatural in the Bible." That's not what he was saying at all. He was basically pointing out the differences in the supernatural context post-canon, or like post-Augustine, and the ancient Near East view of the people of the time. So, if you read a lot of people, I think the early church fathers had it better than after Augustine. I think after Augustine, it gets a lot worse when it comes to some of the takes on angels and demons and stuff like that. But primarily, it was more of a side issue. Like, the supernatural, yes, angels exist, yes, demons are real and all these things, but it's sort of a adjacent issue to the whole biblical narrative. Whereas Mike is like, no, that was like the central context to everything going on in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, leading into the New Testament. And it connects everything together, right? The Watchers, Genesis 6, the Tower of Babel, even, it all sort of connects together. So there's something to be said about Mike's work in its explanatory power. So I digress. Let me go back to what I wrote here in regards to a response to the Pope's encyclical on AI. So, okay, Babel was not merely a political rebellion, excuse me, but more importantly, it was a spiritual rebellion against God. Genesis 11 presents humanity unifying in pride, building a city and tower to make a name for themselves rather than obeying God's command to fill the earth. Later Jewish traditions intensify this theme. For example, the book of Jasher says the builders, quote, imagined in their hearts to war against God and to ascend to heaven. And I've outlined this before as well, where in the book of Jasher anyway, and again, these are sort of extra biblical texts. It's not canon. It's not anything other than maybe some loose commentary on the context of things like Genesis 11 and the Tower of Babel. But in the account of the book of Jasher, which the book of Jasher, I think, is mentioned in the scriptures, and there's debate about whether the current book of Jasher is the actual book of Jasher that was quoted. So anyway, the view that is expressed there is that Nimrod and the people gathered together, not just to build a tower and do things apart from God, but actually to kill God. Like, hey, we're trying to get into heaven to kill God so we can take the throne. And so there's an active rebellion, not just sort of a wispy, hey, we're ignoring God or we're rejecting God. It's like, no, we're here to kill God. That was the perspective. So in that context, again, the Pope doesn't go nearly far enough when it comes to the Babel analogy. I think he, of course, it's telling that he has to go there to address this topic, because, I mean, a simple Google search or maybe even an AI search will pull up the sentiment we've been sharing for 15 years. Is like, hey, the Tower of Babel seems to reflect on these topics, right? Single language, an effort to either become gods themselves or dethrone God, or maybe one and the same mission. So I say here the Pope's encyclical barely recognizes some of this dynamic when it describes Babel as a project conceived without reference to God and supported by uniformity that eliminates diversity. So yeah, it's just funny how from the Pope, it's like, oh, it might turn into the Tower of Babel, and that's bad because it's going to eliminate diversity, everybody. Like, oh, that's like the lowest rung of concerns when it comes to the Babel issue. And I didn't even mention the portal stuff, right? The portal stuff there's good scholarship on that as well, that the Tower of Babel is actually a portal for these entities to arrive or ascend. And again, for what purpose? To dethrone God. This is established also in the scriptures if you dig enough. I guess I don't have to read all of this. I talk about Genesis 11 and the point that I've made for years. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. That's what God was saying when he was taking a look at what the people were building with the Tower of Babel. And I've related that line to what is capable with technology as it continues to advance. And specifically, I used to point out the opening lines from the movie Ready Player One, where the main character is narrating the situation and is describing the oasis, which is the virtual world where people enter into, the metaverse, if you will, where people enter and they have to work. They have to do things in the metaverse to make enough money so they can pay rent to live in their little cubicles. Of course, right? They got their VR headsets and their bodies, sensor suits and all that. And the way it was described was, this is the oasis where you can be anything or be anyone, be anything or do anything. Anything you imagine to do is possible in the oasis. And that line was like, hey, this is directly what God was saying is probably not a great thing for fallen humanity to have access to with the Tower of Babel. So again, there's this whole side of ancient technology that speculatively may also consist of part of this conversation, but we don't even have to go there necessarily, especially as newer people are entering this discussion. You know, you slap them with Portal and, you know, all that kind of stuff. They might think you're crazy. I mean, they already think we're crazy, so I guess it doesn't matter. But it might be a turnoff, right? So you don't have to go there immediately. You can start with the more obvious things, like specifically from Scripture, exactly what it says, with nothing they propose to do will be impossible. The issue at Babel was not merely political unity, but unified human imagination amplified through collective power and rebellion against God. And some interpreters have even suggested that Babel reflected the misuse of technological or spiritual knowledge in humanity's attempt to exalt itself. So I basically ranted on that a second ago. AI increasingly functions in the same way. And of course, I bring up all the different ways AI flattens a whole bunch of topics, from language to communication to economics, surveillance, and of course, identity, which is what the Pope is trying to address here. Like, hey, we have our human identity. There's a mystery about our human identity, which there's not. You know, we're imagers of God. That is our true identity. It's almost like the fall caused us to forget our main identity, which is imagers of Christ, imagers of God. But of course, that's part of what sin is. That's part of what the fall represents, is losing that perspective. And the work of Christ on the cross is the reclaiming of that and helping us remember that. And then, of course, the already not yet, where we are spiritually saved, yet we are awaiting our physical, eternal bodies that will, basically consummate this whole concept into restoration, which everything happening today with AI and all the other topics I'll discuss, because I'm going to bring up the enhanced games later, which is another topic today that over the weekend was kind of a big deal, and still ongoing because the enhanced games are still going on. These are topics that we talked about for so many years in the context of transhumanism. It's all in this context of advancing humanity, or at least presented in that way. But we know that's not really the case, or that's not really going to be the end result of this. It's going to be flesh being corrupted to the point where Jesus has to return because all flesh has corrupted their ways, which is kind of a wild thing to think about, and almost science fiction, crazy, nonsensical talk for generations, maybe until recently, where it's like, yeah, we're going to start tinkering with our genetics, everybody. We're going to throw microchips in your brains, everybody. Hey, don't worry, we're doing this for humanity, right? So let me keep on going here. Humanity now possesses tools capable of generating synthetic realities, artificial personas, persuasive simulations, autonomous systems, and immersive digital environments at scale. The ancient Babel impulse, let us make a name for ourselves, is repeating in technological form. AI is essentially industrializing human imagination, which is a product of the human mind. And of course, if the human being is fallen, this is a problem. You're amplifying sin, basically, if you continue to do this. Pride, selfishness, all these different things. This becomes especially sobering in light of Revelation 18, where the merchants of the earth grow wealthy through a vast worldwide system of trade and exploitation. Among the listed cargo, okay? Among the listed cargo are slaves, that is, human souls, okay? So some people, or some translations say bodies, human bodies and their souls. So human bodies and their souls become cargo to the merchants that get wealthy in the end times of some kind. The other aspect of this, and this is where I didn't really flush this all out in this article because I really was ranting pretty fast when I wrote this, but part of the other view, right? The Pope is framing it as, hey, we're going to either turn into the Tower of Babel or Jerusalem under Nehemiah. Now, the merchants of the earth, under my understanding of who Mystery Babylon is, and there's a spiritual way to understand it, but then there's the more practical way, scripturally pretty airtight as far as I'm concerned, which is that Mystery Babylon is eschatological Jerusalem. Very clearly stated, not current Jerusalem necessarily, eschatological Jerusalem, because all of the items until slaves, that is human souls, is listed. All the different aspects that the merchants get wealthy from are things that are required for temple worship in the Old Testament at the temple. So, you go through the temple stuff and it's all the, like gold, silver, bronze, all this stuff, but also different fragrances and different little things. I'm gonna try to pull it up here because it's just better to have it all up and reading it straight from the word here. Here we go. Gold, silver, precious stones, pearls, fine linen, purple silk, scarlet, all kinds of citron. And people will point out the scarlet with the, with the Pope as well. All kinds of citron wood and every article of ivory, precious wood, bronze, iron, and marble, of cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, oil or olive oil, fine flour, and wheat, cattle, sheep, horses, carriages. So a lot of this stuff is literally one for one things that are required for temple worship. If you go to the Old Testament, you go to the book of Leviticus and things like that, you'll see this list being pretty close. So it's just ironic that the Pope is like, hey, we're either going to build the Tower of Babel or we're going to rebuild basically the temple in Jerusalem, or, Jerusalem is sort of this thing. And so the concern being, hey, we're human dignity. Yeah, got to have human dignity. Well, in the case of the Pope, unwittingly, maybe pushing for that Nehemiah-driven rebuild of Jerusalem might fulfill the prophecy of the merchants getting wealthy by trading human souls. Ironically, right? And as a side note here, to that effect of trading human souls, just a quick Elon clip here, because over the weekend, this also came up.
The danger of AI is much greater than the danger of nuclear warheads by a lot.
You are already sort of a cybernetic symbiote. Neural nets are taking over from regular programming. So you are connected.
That's the jingle. Here's what Elon said over the weekend.
Let's say you're praying to God and you ask for a given future. What future do you want God to give you? And probably a future where there's amazing abundance for all, where everybody has incredible medical care, and we have this, and in fact, where say anything can be cured, where no one is hungry and people are free to do what they would like. I think that's probably the best future.
And peace and love.
Well, yeah. I mean, always worry about if you wish for something, does it actually become some dystopian version of that? But certainly love. I mean, I think we want a future with love. That seems like a no-brainer. Peace is an interesting one because, sometimes the price for complete peace may be too high, because the complete peace may require too much suppression of the people. So perhaps there is peace to some degree, but not completely. Ideally, there's not like a large-scale war, of course. But, you have to think about these questions kind of deeply. Do you want a world where there's no conflict? But how do you achieve a world of no conflict at all without some form of suppression? So my guess is probably people would want a future with some conflict, not total peace, but not a serious war, perhaps.
He went on to say that Neuralink is going to give people godlike abilities. And he was also discussing how the technology is Jesus-like, because it's going to heal people and heal the sick and the people who have disabilities and things. And of course, there were two reactions to that. One being, hey, this is great. This is going to help people. And the other reaction being, hey, this sounds like counterfeit signs and wonders, Elon. It sounds like some healings and miracles that may not be genuine. And his little rant on peace there, I thought was interesting, because you talk about Jesus being the Prince of Peace. You look at why the world even needs a savior that is separate from mankind itself, yet still present, or one with mankind, if you will. And the only logical explanation is for something that transcends humanity to manage humanity, if you want to have true peace as we have conceptualized it, in sort of a teleological argument sense for the existence of God, that like, hey, if you can conjure up the idea, because we can perceive this idea of perfection or a better world or a more peaceful world where everyone gets along and everyone's, there's no conflict. Even the Bible talks about the reign of Christ, the millennium, where animals lie with each other, the child will play with the snake and all this kind of stuff. This peace that is beyond simply between humans, and it's something that's supernatural almost in our view. But we can conceive of it. We can see glimpses of it in our world today. And so it explains why we need a transcendent, I guess, entity, or a third party, not humanity managing itself, but something apart from humanity to actually intervene on behalf of humanity to achieve such a state. And if you think back to Eden, how it was created. God created Eden. God created man. God created woman, and the animals and the plants and everything else. And there was a sense of harmony and peace with not just between mankind, but also with nature and with God. There was this balance, or this perfection. And so all of us inherently, I think, are born with this ideology in our brains, but we don't always attribute it to God. In fact, the subtle deception and the disease of mankind, sin, appears to be that we deceive ourselves into thinking that we can solve these problems. And the technology has gotten so good and to a place now where those things might be quote unquote achievable. But will it last, and will it actually create the kind of effect people are hoping for? Well, biblically speaking, it's not going to be what everyone thinks it is. So that's just a little side note, rabbit trail. I wanted to bring in the Elon story, but not necessarily do a whole thing on him. But in the context of this AI papacy thing, I think it was appropriate to bring that up. Let's see. For the sake of time, I don't think I need to read through the whole article that I wrote. I talk about the image of the beast. And to be honest, if this is the first time hearing me rant about the image of the beast, thank you for being here, by the way, if this is your first time listening in and tuning in. But yeah, I've been ranting about the image of the beast when it comes to AI for close to 15 years. And I'm not the only one, of course. There are others who have. But specifically regarding the image of the beast, it had occurred to me very early on in going down these rabbit holes that in Revelation 13, it describes an image or an idol, which earlier in chapters of Exodus and things, God says, hey, idol is nothing. There's nothing there. If people that worship idols are actually worshiping demons and things of that nature, all of a sudden the image has breath. And that breath causes the image to desire worship. So it is sort of a godlike entity that is created out of this. And because of that, it desires not just worship, but requires the mark for economic purposes. And it kills, or has the right to kill, anybody who doesn't abide by those rules. And so there's this reverse going on of a sort of true millennial kingdom situation. But I want to point out one thing about the Pope's take on this, that, again, he just shoots himself in the foot when it comes to this whole, like, hey, come together. We need to unite humanity with AI, not separate into the Tower of Babel, whatever. Which is that in the book of Revelation, chapter 13 specifically, the people, if you read carefully, let me actually go to it, Revelation 13 here. The people, first of all, there are counterfeit signs and wonders that, and even fire coming down from heaven in the presence of the people. And that deceives the people who dwell on the earth. And they are told to make the image of the beast that was wounded by the sword yet lived. So this project of building the image is not something that's done by the beast. It's not done by the man of sin, even necessarily the Antichrist, because the man of sin, theoretically, if you follow along some interpretations or some Bible studies, he's the one that had the head wound yet lived, right? From the first half of Revelation 13, it's sort of his resurrection moment, this image. But the detail here I want to point out is it's the people building the image. And then the second beast is permitted to give it breath. So the image itself is built by the people. And you think about what the Pope is asking for. He's asking the people to have control of AI. So it's like, man, even your, hey, we got to work together so we have safe AI is sort of setting us up for this moment, this eschatology. And again, I'm not saying that this is how everything will play out, but my goodness, how relevant is this when it comes to what is said in scripture and what the Pope is suggesting? Where again, on the surface, it's like, okay, the Pope is going this way or that way. This false dichotomy of like, hey, you're either building the Tower of Babel or you're building Jerusalem. But again, even in the context of building Jerusalem, it's like, okay, you're building Jerusalem kind of like how the end times is describing Jerusalem, where the beast and the harlot fornicate and the whole thing. So it's just a kind of a, I don't know, it's rattling to me that these deeper sort of spiritual dimensions aren't considered. Obviously, the Pope is not going to consider these things coming at it from where he's coming at it from, which is not surprising. But I don't know, alarm bells went off in my head. And this isn't to scare anybody. It's just to say like, hey, once again, like even the Pope trying to do and say the right thing from an eschatological point of view, the shoe fits in a sense, right? Like the setup is it's almost like a layup or an alley-oop, it's very easy to see how some of this can happen. And of course, causing fire to come down from heaven, a lot of people say, oh, it's nuke or something like that, but that could easily be space lasers. It could have something to do with this UFO disclosure thing and the alien thing. There seems to be a whole overlap of topics when it comes to AI, aliens. And I've seen people on the timeline start to recognize it like, hey, maybe there's something going on with this AI thing and aliens. And it's like, yeah. Welcome to the conversation, everybody. And it's not that we're so smart. It's just as watchmen, you're looking at the horizon. We were looking at the horizon with this stuff coming over the hill 15 years ago. We weren't the first, but we were certainly rare in terms of looking at it and saying something about it publicly. It did make us look crazy. I will say that we were actually seen as absolutely crazy in the eyes of many people, my family, my friends. I mean, yeah, even our fellow church community, not so much anymore. Now it's like I talk about these issues and not my personal, but Bible studies in my local church and stuff. And, I get people asking me if I'm a scholar or I'm a PhD or something. I'm like, no, I'm not a PhD, but I've just been looking at these issues for such a long time that I can rant and rave about it for hours on end. But okay, I'm going to stop the reading of my reaction to the Pope's encyclical here. But let's just to summarize it. Okay. The Pope didn't go far enough with the Babel analogy. And he's also sort of shooting himself in the foot with the other option, the sort of positive road that he's hoping everyone will take. It also has its own problems because it's kind of setting itself up for the whole image of the beast thing. And again, I'm not saying that is exactly how things will play out. I don't know. I am not God. I do not know how things will play out. But certainly it's interesting nonetheless that despite the desire to manage this AI situation, the Pope is still finding himself, at least for the informed, stepping right into biblical eschatology. So there you go. That's the whole AI Pope thing. Do go read, if you have time, go read the encyclical. It's pretty dense and a lot of, I don't know, kind of nonsensical stuff, but it's worth a read. And if you would like, go read my response to it. Again, I didn't get into every little detail, but I did rant about it and put something together this morning as a response. And there are other reports coming out here regarding some of this, because I haven't even mentioned the name Peter Thiel when it comes to this. Of course, Peter Thiel had been going around recently doing lectures about the Antichrist and saying, hey, we don't want a one world government because that'll bring about the Antichrist, but we also don't want Armageddon, where there's like this big war. So we gotta find the narrow path. And that's kind of the language he was using with his lectures, which again is very fascinating. One of the biggest billionaire tech bros out there are even talking and doing lectures about the Antichrist. But there is a report, I don't know how true this is, but there's a report out here that in leaked audio recordings, Peter Thiel revealed he told J.D. Vance to ignore Pope Leo XIV on moral issues, including the development of ethical AI, calling Leo XIV the, quote, woke American Pope. It's really interesting that the gay man, Christian billionaire tech bro is calling Pope Leo the woke American Pope. I mean, the layers of this beast onion. Ooh, I like that. Beast onion. Somebody mark that. I'm going to start talking about the beast onion. Welcome American Pope. He also suggested the American Pope was a tool of the Antichrist. That's really rich. Now Pope Leo XIV is releasing what's expected to be an historic encyclical addressing AI tomorrow morning. So this was yesterday. So Peter Thiel's out here telling J.D. Vance to ignore the Pope. Don't listen to the Pope, the woke Pope, about AI ethics because he's the tool of the Antichrist. Meanwhile, Peter Thiel is saying he's not the Antichrist. AI is not the Antichrist. But we don't want the Antichrist. I mean, it's so interesting how no matter where you are in the ranks of society, this AI topic is pulling like a magnet. It is just pulling eschatological themes and biblical topics right to the forefront. It's undeniable. People can't help themselves. This is the only context by which people have to discuss these things. And man, it's sad to see that a lot of the public discourse on this is being shaped by either the Pope or Peter Thiel or some of these other people. It's folks like us. I mean, I don't know, maybe we're not meant to be heard by a whole lot of people, which is fine. I'm not worried about that. My whole prayer when starting the ministry at the beginning was, hey, if this reaches one person, and that would be a huge blessing. And I think the Lord blessed myself anyway, and my family, and Basil too, and just people in the community, at least based on the testimonials of people that we've heard over the years, that it had reached more than one person. So, already it's a huge blessing to be placed in that sort of role when it comes to all of this. But now that the conversation is public and is sort of front center, man, it's just kind of like, wow, come on, guys. There's deeper ways to talk about these issues, but no one cares about what I have to say. At least not at the larger levels. No one really cares about what Gonz has to say about AI and the end times and Peter Thiel and the Pope and stuff. And I appreciate all of you if you are here listening to me rant about it and have been for 15 years, because you're the real ones. Okay, you're the real ones who get it. And there's a little bit of preaching to the choir when it comes to this stuff, but at the very least, we have each other when it comes to it. And that at least one of us was crazy enough to say all this stuff publicly years ago. And speaking of years ago, and I hate to do this because it's always like, oh, and it's not to toot our own horn, okay? It's not like, oh, we're so smart, we're so this, that. That's not the point. It's just that when we've covered topics for so long and then they just become regular headlines, we have there's two emotions that happen. One is like a vindication, like we told you, the called it thing. Hold on, let me get the called it jingle or the ISO here.
Called it.
Yeah. And there's also the I tried to tell you kind of thing. Why doesn't that pull up anymore? The whole Stephen A thing.
I tried to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the feeling I get, right?
I tried to tell you.
No one listened. But when certain things are so on point, just man, what I need to do, and maybe a producer can help us with this. Oh, somebody said we're not live on Rumble. Oh, you know what? Look at that. We're not live on Rumble. Let me fix that real quick. All right. Sorry about that. We are live on Rumble now. Go to other places if you want to hear the first part of the episode here. We're an hour in. Okay. What was I saying? Yeah. So if there's a producer out there that wants to help us put together like little short clips or something where we are able to sort of compare what we said in 2012 or 2013 or something like that, and then like a 2026 headline, that's the kind of content I want to make, but I just don't have the time or the energy to do right now. But feel free to make that content and just publish it on your own accounts. Like, we don't have to publish it on the Canary Cry account. You guys can do whatever you want with all the free content out there that's been out there for years. So back in 2012, specifically June 5th, 2012, we published Canary Cry Radio episode number 12. Man, such a long time ago. The topic was transhumanism, personhood, and fear. And we talked about non-human personhood, specifically around technologies and robots and stuff, but also animals. We talked about how animals, as technology increases and we have this ability to understand what animals are thinking and maybe even communicate with them, that the ethics for animal treatment and stuff, it's going to go to a different level, a different scale. So over the weekend, this is Business Today, published this headline: the $118 pet whisperer. This Chinese smart collar claims to give your beloved pet a voice. Okay. A tiny 27.2 gram plastic clip hanging from a cat's collar might just be the most polarizing piece of technology in consumer artificial intelligence today. Developed by Hangzhou-based startup Meng Zhaoyi, the device, dubbed PettyChat, has sent social media into a frenzy by promising to solve humanity's oldest domestic mystery: what your pet is actually trying to say. Backed by a freshly secured $1 million seed round and utilizing Alibaba's Cloud's massive Qwen large language model, LLM, the hardware startup claims its system can translate meows and barks into full human sentences within 1.2 seconds, boasting a contextual emotion detection accuracy rate of up to 94.6% for cats and 92.3% for dogs. Why is it lower for dogs? I guess maybe, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's because I own a dog, or have owned many dogs. But it feels like dogs are kind of more upfront about their emotions. Like they're really straightforward about what they want and what they need and stuff like that when they're hungry or they want to play or something. Cats seem like I had a cat growing up my whole life, and cats seem more like mysterious. They kind of look at you and they're like, are you critiquing me? Like, are you judging me? What are you doing, cat? I don't know. We need Basil here for the defense of the dog or the cats when it comes to communicating through, I don't know, facial expressions or something. But okay, yet as international pre-orders eclipse 10,000 units ahead of its official May 30 release, the tech has run headfirst into a wall of scientific skepticism. Great. Critics and veterinarians are already labeling the 799 yuan, that's about $118 device, an expensive IQ tax, a clever novelty engine masquerading as zoological breakthrough. From barks to tokens. Unlike the rudimentary novelty app of the early 2000s, that mapped sounds to static soundboards, PetaChat approaches animal communication through what founder Li Jiangyuan calls an animal behavior world model. The device views an animal's physical existence not as random noise, but as predictable data packets. Quote, humans already have large language models based on modal data. We hope to build a world model for animals that include visual, auditory, and behavioral signals, Li Jiangyuan, founder of PetaChat, said. All right, we don't have to go into all the details here, but the idea is that your AI is going to be able to communicate your animal. Not a new idea, by the way. And just a few weeks ago, there was somebody who said, in the context of the Iran conflict in the Straits of Hormuz, it was reported that dolphins were being employed to take out, like armed and deployed to take out U.S. ships. And people thought, oh, that's silliness. That Iran would use dolphins armed with mines to attack U.S. warships. That's ridiculous. But some people went down the rabbit hole of some CIA experiments that took place in the 70s, 60s and 70s, I believe, and into the 80s even, where dolphin communication was explored. And in fact, I found a clip from this movie called The Day of the Dolphin, 1972. Let me play the a 2-minute clip from it, okay? Just pay attention.
Is it possible that dolphins are as intelligent as we are?
Well, that depends on your definition of intelligence.
What about the experiments at the military?
I don't know anything about the military.
What about their speaking in English?
I beg your pardon? First month, first year. Alpha speaking. In his own language, of course.
I want to visit Jacob Durrell's Marine Biology Center.
Second month, second year. 13 months to isolate the clicking patterns from the squeaks and the whistles and the drone.
The fact is, Dr. Terrell does not want visitors.
Is he hiding something?
7th month, second year. Our first phony.
Terrell tell you not to talk to me?
What?
Did he tell you not to give me any information?
4th year. Here comes our first morpheme. Phoneme P plus phoneme A equal. You've had quite a day, haven't you?
Fa? Why does Fa speak? Yes. Why Fa speak?
He does it for me.
Why does Fa speak to Pa?
You're sneaking up on us. It looks like we're going to be forced to come out with the information first to keep this whole thing from turning into some kind of freak show.
I want you to know that the equipment we borrowed is in fine shape, and it'll be returned to you very soon if nothing interferes with it.
Where are they? The dolphins. I would guess they're on that yacht.
What are they going to do with them?
That's the part we don't know. What we do know is that they've been working on this thing since you started teaching your friend Alpha to talk.
How do we stop them?
Unwittingly, he had trained a dolphin to kill the President of the United States.
Okay, so in 1972, they made a movie called The Day of the Dolphin, where dolphins learn how to communicate. The scientist breaks it all down. And the dolphin was being trained to assassinate the president. Okay. So this animal communication thing is very old. It's an old topic. But for China to get in on a device, I mean, not surprising whatsoever. At some point, this will, I guess, take hold, become popular. I think it has to achieve a certain level for it to really become more ubiquitous. But I mean, it's again, goes back to that conversation between profit and, you know, what is actually useful or what's actually maintains the dignity of not just people, but animals now. But what we were discussing, I believe in 2012, was how this type of technology will provide a certain level of legal personhood for animals. I mean, this is like PETA's dream right here to get animal communication to this level, and AI being at the center of that. So it's not just communication with, or, you know, AI flattening the communication with all people between languages. In fact, the language barrier coming down means the barrier is coming down with animals as well. And what that means for our interaction with animals could be beastly. Let's just leave it there. Speaking of the beast system.
Speaking of the beast system. Beast system.
And transhumanism. All right. Another topic that we discussed over the years, the enhanced games. The Guardian here with the headline, Enhanced Games claim we changed the world, but only one record broken and 3 clean athletes win. All right, so what is the enhanced games? Let's find out here. They promised multiple world records to redefine what the human body is capable of with performance-enhancing drugs, even to change sport forever. But by the end of the inaugural Enhanced Games in Las Vegas, organizers were left with one abiding emotion: relief. Everyone's relieved. Only in the final event of the night, after more than 5 hours of competition, could they lay claim to having gone quicker than an official world record, as the Greek swimmer Christian Golomiev, I don't know how to say that, swam 20.81 seconds in the men's 50-meter freestyle. That was just 0.01 seconds quicker, or 7/100ths of a second, quicker than the time set by Australian Cameron McCoy in March. That's the world record. But it allowed organizers to put a gloss on a night that was glitzy but lacked the excitement and records they had forecasted. Of course, Glockomiev's record will not count officially, given that he was wearing a special skin suit that is outlawed in elite sport and also was doping. But that didn't stop the Enhanced Game CEO Maximilian Martin bowing in relief at Glockomiev's feet and claiming victory over the doubters. Quote, "We have arrived in mainstream culture," Martin claimed. "We are here to stay. We have changed the world tonight." Organizers have made several crazy claims ever since the Enhanced Games were launched in 2023. This, though, must surely count as the wildest. However, Martin wasn't finished yet. Quote, "With the power of enhancements, we can prove we are the best we can ever think of, and you are living proof of that," he told a passionate crowd of fitness influencers and biotech investors. Quote, "For the last 3 days, Enhanced took over the internet. Enhanced is culture, and now people can also get enhanced and be the best they have ever been." Why does he sound like a robot? While the vast majority of the 42 competing sprinters, swimmers, and weightlifters were taking banned substances such as testosterone, EPO, and anabolic steroids, 3 athletes who were competing clean also won. Okay, let me just stop for a second there, because this touches on some personal history here with the sport of swimming, okay? And it also reveals a couple different aspects of what might be going on. Because what the article didn't mention at the top here is that the winner of every event, whether they were enhanced or not, was $250,000. And that jumped out at me right away because, of course, if you know my history, I grew up as a competitive swimmer. I made it to the ranks of Olympic trials in America. I was not fast enough to make the Olympic team for the US, not even close. But I competed at for most people, it would be considered a pretty high level. But of course, from my perspective, it was like, I stink, not making the Olympic team. And all didn't help that my peers, my training partners and people on my swim team did go to the Olympics and break world records and all that kind of stuff. So, in the context of where I was competing and training, it was like, well, I'm chopped liver over here compared to these guys who are actually making the Olympic team and winning gold medals and breaking world records and stuff like that. I was just fodder. But of course, in the greater, if I pull back, look at it more from a objective perspective, I competed at a pretty high level of swimming. But one of the things that I recognized very early on was that, look, Olympic gold medals, great achievement, right? I mean, you are competing at the highest level of your sport. And for that one race or that one evening or that one day, you can claim to be in swimming, the fastest swimmer in the world. You don't have to break a world record to win a gold medal, right? So in that context, it's like, great, you can win a gold medal. Now, what does that mean for these individual athletes financially? Because a lot of these athletes, they sacrifice a lot to get to where they get to. They sacrifice a social life. They sacrifice probably relationships, family, time, friends, whatever, school, all kinds of stuff to train every single day to get to the level where they're at. And that's true with any sport or any success. There's a lot of sacrifice that takes place. It's not abnormal for just Olympic swimmers or something, but that is the case. I've known too many swimmers that competed at the Olympics and also won gold medals who have publicly stated after the fact that, like, hey, I can't make a living from this. Like, what is there a way the Olympic Committee could give me money or give me a job or something? Like, I have nothing. And so these people that spend all their lives to train to achieve their goals, which is undoubtedly, it's not nothing. Winning a gold medal is very, it's honorable, I would say. But in terms of your career financially, unless you're a Katie Ledecky or a Michael Phelps, which is literally like 0.0001% of the 0.001%, like it's like two or three people, especially in the sport of swimming, one or two people who are like millionaires because of what they've done at the Olympics. And Michael Phelps being a guy who he won 8 gold medals at one Olympics, and I don't know how many he has total, but that's like one guy. Okay, so unless you're Michael Phelps or Katie Ledecky, who's another gold medalist and stuff, you're not going to be someone that makes millions of dollars or is successful financially because of your position of winning gold medals. For the most part, most swimmers, they can win. And this is America specifically. I don't know how it is in other countries. I think there's other incentives depending on what country you're from. Maybe Russia is different, maybe, I don't know. I have no idea. China, I know there's some financial incentives tied in with winning gold medals, but at least in the United States, you win an Olympic gold medal, unless you're marketable, you're not making $250,000 a year. You're just not. So the thing that stood out to me right from the get-go was, wow, a $250,000 earning for winning this enhanced games, and just one event at these enhanced games incentivizes your common swimmer that it may be high level, but maybe not Olympic level. It incentivizes them to, number one, enhance, to look into whatever substances or enhancement programs that are out there that are deemed illegal by the Olympic Committee, and move towards those types of enhancements, but then also to compete in this realm of competition because there is a financial incentive. You win the race, you make $250,000. You break a world record, you get $1 million. And the second thought was, who is putting up this money? Who's putting up this money? I believe I looked it up. If you win an Olympic gold medal for the United States as a swimmer, I believe the U.S. I forget what it was. It's some organization. I don't know if it's like the Olympic Committee or the Swimming Association or something like that. The gold medalist gets like $30,000 or something, which is not nothing. That's a nice amount of money, but nobody today is living off of $30,000 a year in America. I mean, you are basically homeless with $30,000 a year. I'm sorry, that's not to offend anybody. It's just the reality of inflation and everything else. $30,000 is going to be very difficult for anybody to have like a comfortable life, especially if you're like an Olympic gold medalist. You should be making maybe a little bit more than that, for your sacrifices and whatnot. So that was the thing that stood out to me the most, is that there is a financial, anytime you dangle the carrot of money in front of people, especially those folks who maybe not be fast enough to be top level in their sport, they will be pulled to the enhanced games because there is a financial incentive. So that's one thing. The other aspect of this is, the article talks about how, hey, there wasn't that many world records broken, like the enhancements didn't really work out the way people had hoped. But it comes down to a clip from the guy who started it. And he's talking about something here about the regular Olympics. Check this out.
These guys at the Olympics that are claiming all natural, they never use anything, are probably full of it.
So what's interesting? The International Olympic Committee actually did research on an anonymized basis how many athletes admit to using banned substances. 43% said they are. 1% gets caught.
Okay. It's kind of loud noises there. But what he said was the Olympic Committee did a study on Olympians, and they found out that 43% of Olympians currently are already using enhancements, and only 1% gets caught. So as suspected, and that was part of what I think is being exposed here as well with the enhanced games, is that the regular Olympics is already, I mean, the Olympic Committee is like a corrupt, if you look into that whole thing, I mean, it's just a bastion of corruption to begin with. So there's that side. There's like politics involved in it. It's like anything else, folks. You get to the institutional level, you get people in there. There's incentives with money. There's all these different types of corruption and evil going on. It's inevitable when it comes to human institutions. The Olympic Committee is no different in that regard. But the idea that 43%, they found 43%, and it's probably higher than that, of athletes are already enhanced, and that only 1% gets caught, because if you're the Olympic Committee and you do that study, you find out half of your athletes that compete in the Olympics are already using enhancements that are borderline or illegal or not illegal yet or something, because that's a lot of the case. These athletes will get their hands on technology or treatments or something that are so brand new that there's no regulation for it. They get the enhancements and then, they can go do their thing. They can't, unless they want to be really ethical, it goes back to that conversation. Do you maintain actual human dignity, or you care more about the bottom line? Right? And for the Olympics, it's too late at this point. It's much better to have world records be broken, to have attention for the Olympics worldwide. It only comes around once every 4 years. It's a big project. And of course, the Olympics, the next one, I believe, is in Los Angeles. It's in my neck of the woods. I'm not in LA, but I'm in Southern California. So, and partly why probably they're burning down Los Angeles, right? They burned down a whole bunch of places in LA last year. There's more fires spreading. I think the Olympics and the rebuild, quote unquote, has something to do with that, because it is a big economically incentived thing. The Olympics are for any town that hosts it. So there's that. But again, sacrificing actual human dignity for the bottom line, no different for the Olympic Committee, because if the Olympic Committee came out and they banned 50% of their athletes because they found them using enhanced substances, how does that make the Olympic Committee look? To say like, whoa, you guys let it get to the point where half the people competing are using illegal substances? That's not a good look. And then maybe the backlash won't be as crazy in the long run. It's like, okay, we know the Olympic Committee at the very least are trying to maintain a level playing field for people. But that era, I think, is over. As a competitive swimmer growing up, we were always looking for an edge because, like the article stated, we're trying to improve tenths of a second, hundredths of a second could be the difference between winning and losing or breaking a record or something like that. And so, as guys, guess what guys did growing up? If you're a swimmer, right before the big swim meet, we shaved our hairs, we shaved our legs and all of our stuff, right? Some people shave their heads. We were told, hey, grow out your fingernails a little bit. It'll help you catch the water a little bit more. Make sure to shave your face, make sure, all these ridiculous, silly little things to try to get that little edge. But now that we're in the bioenhancement era, the advantage of certain people that have access to different enhancements, they're going to have the advantage, right? And so we're already seeing the split in society of the haves and have-nots, so to speak, when it comes to access to this type of technology. And if you're a competing swimmer, I mean, I just know for me, if I was like 16, 17 and I was still competing and I was fast but not that fast, I would be tempted for sure to go the enhancement route, especially if there's, hundreds of thousands of dollars being dangled in front of me. I would rather do that than like compete at the college level, which yielded me nothing. Competing in college yielded me nothing other than some experience and some friends and stuff, and a scholarship to a university, which was nice for me. But so incentives and the economics is a driving factor for this. And I think it's a big tell as to what the actual agenda is here. And of course, the big giveaway here is that people like Peter Diamandis, I believe that's the way you pronounce his name, is out there. Let's see. Here's his post. Here at Enhanced Games to see records get smashed. Start of Human 2.0. Wonder when all athletes become genetically modified organisms. Peter Diamandis is, again, a billionaire type. He's, early investor in all the tech companies. And he's really big on transhumanism. And he's out here saying, when are humans going to become, all athletes going to become GMOs? Does he not realize how insane that sounds? He probably doesn't. But I go back to Jared Kushner's quote.
My generation is hopefully, with the advances in science, the first generation to live forever, or the last generation that's going to die.
Genetically modified athletes as genetically modified organisms. All right, great. We're trying to just eat clean, non-genetically modified food. But Peter Diamandis is out here saying that, hey, we're going to break records. Human 2.0, baby. Athletes are going to be GMOs. Like, what are you talking about? But the other big giveaway, Brian Johnson, the guy that's trying to live forever, the guy that takes his son's blood, the guy who's, doing psychedelics and live streaming it and doing all these things, spending millions of dollars on his health to try to live forever. That guy was one of the hosts of this event. He was taking pictures with all the different athletes, and he was, doing a whole PR campaign on his X account with it. But I have this clip here because there was one swimmer named James Magnuson whose photo was getting around. Okay, this photo of him in his swimsuit and all yoked up was getting around. And again, I have a little bit of an advantage here because I was a competitive swimmer. The reality is, if you are a swimmer and you are super muscular, like you're yoked, it's actually a disadvantage because number one, you're heavier. Muscles sinks, fat floats, muscle sinks. So you're actually heavier in the water. You could lose flexibility. And just in general, you just got to move more weight through the water. So there's a photo of this guy going around just yoked. I mean, the veins popping in his arms, the whole thing, and he's wearing the jammer suits. And this was something I did not like. I never wore these things. Right when I was coming towards the end of my swimming career, guys started wearing like what looked like women's suits, where they have the suit itself go all the way around the neck and around the shoulders and stuff. It just it was very uncomfortable. I was part of the generation that went from Speedos to the biker shorts type of thing. But now all these guys are, they got the full thing. But this guy, he's wearing his full body suit there, and he's so yoked that his muscles are just like bulging out. I mean, this guy looks real yoked. And here's he came in last in his race. And here's Brian Johnson's comment on it.
They found that too much enhancement led for more bulking, which made him sink in the pool. So it's not the case that too much is always the right answer. Sometimes you want just the right amount. Now, to do that, you need to look at the athlete's physiology, the body composition, what they respond to, what they don't, measure the biomarkers and see, are they working, are they not? Then you can dial in the performance of what they're actually doing.
Okay, so there's Brian Johnson at the event. He's commenting. First of all, I see sunlight hitting him. A lot of people were commenting like, whoa, Brian, got to be careful, man. You're getting some real sunlight. The UVs might take you out, Mr. Vampire Man. And the other thing was he was drinking water from those plastic water bottles, and people were like, Brian, what are you doing? All those plastics entering your body, because he's supposed to be the health guy. He's supposed to be I spend millions of dollars on my health to try to live forever guy, and he's out here getting sun and drinking water from plastic bottles. Pretty funny. But regardless, so the point being that you heard him say it there, sometimes too much enhancement is bad because you can bulk too much and it makes you sink, which I thought was hysterical. That's kind of what happened to this guy here. What's his name? James Magnuson. He was too bulked up, and there's a side-by-side image of him going around before enhancement, after enhancement. He's certainly a lot more yoked now than he was. But in terms of being a fast swimmer, he's I guess it was a while ago. 2013 was the side-by-side image. Lean and long and whatever. That's a little bit better for swimming than being super yoked. But I just thought it was hysterical that this guy came in last. Poor guy. And these guys, they were going fast, but again, two things. One, I don't think enhancement is necessarily what you think, or at least current forms of enhancement that they used for the enhanced games is not necessarily what will give people an edge. Now, there was one or two maybe world records that were broken, but they're not the longer races. They're all sprints, which I thought was interesting too. They're all the short races. And of course, they're not going to be officially recognized by the World Swimming Association or whatever, all the official institutions. And the other side of it being that at the Olympic level, these athletes are likely already having their own forms of enhancement. But ultimately, what this brings up is the conversation of transhumanism, what it means for us tinkering with our genetic lineage. And to that effect, I want to bring you this other story here that I found a little bit disturbing. And this is from Washington Examiner. Headline: Israeli national arrested at Cyprus airport for trying to smuggle 4 human embryos to Mexico. You heard that right. An Israeli national was arrested at Cyprus airport, Cyprus being a very interesting place if you're familiar with your Nephilim history, for trying to smuggle 4 human embryos to Mexico. The man was arrested at Erkan Airport in the Turkish-controlled part of the island on Tuesday while preparing to board a flight to Mexico via Istanbul, Ynet reported. The embryos were being carried in 4 separate test tubes in a special life parcel, authorities said. The arrest came as part of a larger human smuggling bust. Man, we're beyond child trafficking. We're just human smuggling. We're embryo smuggling now. 2 Turkish nationals were also arrested when the linked clinic in the city of northern Nicosia was raided. The clinic's director and a doctor. The 3 are being charged with attempting to remove human embryos from the island without the proper permits, the outlet reported. Further details about the case, such as why the embryos were being transported and to whom, were unclear. Cases involving human embryos are particularly hard to prosecute given the technology's relatively recent development. This is a quote. What's going on here? Oh, it's paywalled. Let me see the quote here. This is a complex legal field that unfolds simultaneously before law enforcement authorities, health officials, and various international mechanisms. Nir Yazlovith, an attorney specializing in international criminal law, told Ynet, quote, in many cases, the central legal question is not only what was done, but how the procedure was arranged with the authorities and what regulatory framework applied. Okay, so let's see. He added the issues around genetic smuggling across international borders have spiked in recent years. Okay, that's good to know. Adding to the case's legal complexity is that it occurred in an entity recognized only by Turkey, which the rest of the world considers occupied territory. The self-proclaimed Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus is governed by Cypriot Turks, with extensive help from Turkey proper. All right, so the effects of this, there's the embryo side of things, and of course this article does not give us the details because they are unclear about who these embryos were going to and why. But it also brings about the question of how do you place legal barriers around this? How do you manage this type of situation? And the vibe I get is that these types of problems, as they persist, will not just be a national issue, because we are having this retreat to nationalism and populism moment. And I'm calling it a moment because I don't think it's going to last. I actually think it's almost like a little Trojan horse it's almost like a halftime. Like, everyone go to your locker rooms. Okay, we're going to reconvene. Make it look like we're all going back to our corners, or like in between boxing rounds or something. But then, we're going to come back and it's going to even be more intense when it comes to the new world order, the beast system, the whole thing. Because what will assist in this type of thing is more surveillance, more biological surveillance specifically, and a sort of network state prerogative where geography doesn't matter as much, but loyalties to certain networks matter more. And of course, geography will matter, of course, still. But in terms of legalities are concerned, the network state will be the arbiters of who can go where with what, especially if it's going to be continually and increasingly based on, advancing technologies that are good with surveillance and tracking and all these different things. So, sort of underneath this direct problem of human embryo smuggling, which again, if it's in the mainstream, that this is a long-standing problem that who knows goes back how far. What does it mean? What kinds of implications are there? What experiments are being done? We really truly may be so close to the return of Christ if we are really messing with the next generation of our progeny by like handling them in little test tubes and carrying them around in airports and stuff like that. Like, just think about ethically, like, what is wrong with us? Well, I know what's wrong with us. Sin has blinded us. Our consciences are seared, as it says. in the Bible. So that's not a surprise. But man, can we all just not do stuff like this? I guess it's just part of the thing. It's part of the problem with humanity. And it's why I've been ranting and raving about transhumanism and biotech and all this stuff for so many years. It's what allowed us to project something like COVID years ago, saying that, hey, there might be some virus pandemic type thing. There might be some mandatory jabs out there, that sort of thing might occur. And we were able to suggest such things, not just us, but many people in our niche, because we were seeing the writing on the wall when it came to this technology and what it meant for messing with the building blocks of life. And so now we have both ends. We have the modern enhancement conversation when it comes to performance and sports. And we also have the handling of our progeny. Artificial wombs was a story last week. And over the last year or so, there have been more talks about artificial wombs to carry our, if you're, for example, a married gay couple, a man and a man, they cannot biologically have children, but they can create a human. May not be totally human. I don't know. That's another debate. Do they have human souls? Well, I was thinking about this the other day. It's like if a AI is going to be assigned personhood, like artificial intelligence or artificial general intelligence is going to be assigned consciousness or at least, labeled conscious with certain inalienable rights, then a synthetic human will also have those things. I mean, just, if the bar is a large language model that can think, quote unquote, and then a synthetic human will certainly have those legal parameters as well. Now, that's one conversation at the legal level. At the spiritual level, it's a whole different conversation. Do these synthetic humans, will they have souls? Will they have spirit? The Bible talks about God breathing in his ruach, his spirit, into not just mankind, but every living creature. So the animals and stuff, they also, anything that has breath, that breath is God's spirit in a sense. And so animals that breathe, you can argue, have at least God's spirit in it. So if that's the case, then if we synthetically create humans that breathe like we do they also carry God's spirit? I don't think a lot of people are having that conversation or debate right now, but I'm sure that will become more so as synthetic biology becomes more and more popular, especially in the context of enhancement. Right now it's enhancement for performance athletically. Tomorrow it will be enhancements cognitively or otherwise, artistically, all sorts of different things. And this is how you see the deception taking hold. But to get everybody on board with such earth-shattering, societally rattling changes, you need to have a paradigm shift. You can't just give everybody enhancements. This is just too much. You need a paradigm shift in the populace to accept such things. Wonder if there's something that can do that.
Aliens. Yep. Aliens. Aliens. You don't know what you're looking at.
What's driving that thing? It's not a space alien.
Aliens. It's unidentified.
Perfect time to continue to do the whole UFO disclosure. BBC with the headline, U.S. government releases UFO sightings report, orbs swarming in all directions. The second drop took place here on Friday. Let me just read it here. It says, the Pentagon has released scores of UFO files with descriptions of reported sightings of orbs, disks, and fireballs spanning 80 years. Witnesses described seeing, quote, green orbs, disks, and fireballs dating back as far as 1948. And everything happened in 1947, 48, folks. Or what's so special about that year? You know, the founding of Israel. You got like Trump's like born around that time. So is Hillary Clinton. Like it's post World War II. So you got all kinds of international organizations being established, like the UN. You have, you got all kinds of stuff happening right there. It's just a weird time. More recently, a senior U.S. the Dead Sea Scrolls officially being announced. More recently, a senior U.S. intelligence officer said he saw, quote, countless orange orbs swarming in all directions last year, rendering him speechless. So again, this past Friday, war.gov released more files. Let me go there now. war.gov/UFO. That'll get you there, I believe. Maybe it's UFOs, plural. What's going on? Come on. Come on. Maybe there's so many people visiting that it's not working. Oh, no. Hold on. I was right. It's UFO. All right, here we go. All right, yeah. The cookies and daemon trackers had to make sure that I was a human before they can allow me on the website. So here you go. Yeah. U.S. Department of War here. Second tranche of records, or tranche of records. And you can go in there. You can look at all kinds of stuff they released, a lot of CENTCOM footage and whatnot. Again, keeping the UFO community and the truth-seeking community busy because, of course, we got to stay distracted. Got to stay distracted from all the Epstein stuff, right? Well, I would argue that they are not mere distractions for the sake of distraction. I think a lot of people's takes on like, oh, they're releasing the UFO, the stuff they found in the Epstein files was so bad that they had to release the alien files to keep people distracted. So, okay, yeah, that's one layer, one level to it. But I would argue that it's almost like the right hand covering the left hand type thing where it's like a misdirection more so. And the creature that is standing in front of everybody is still the same creature, but it's going, hey, look over here. Hey, look over here. Sort of doing its own whack-a-mole, but doing it the same entity doing it, not two completely separate things. And I say that because the overlap, I keep mentioning this and I'm trying to create a graphic for it. And so far I have not been able to create anything worth using yet. But the idea is that the topic of the Epstein files, the topic of the UFO aliens files, the topic of pandemics and vaccines specifically, and the topic of artificial intelligence and the advancing of technologies and stuff. The common thread with all of it is the Nephilim. It's the Nephilim. And not so much, the Nephilim returning, the giants returning per se, but the principle of what the Nephilim were, which are an abomination, an unholy union of watchers, the divine beings that mated with human women, had offspring. These offspring were not meant to be. They are outside of God's created order. But they existed nonetheless, and they created chaos and evil and corruption of all flesh in the days of Noah. That principle seems to be repeating. And if you look at the Epstein stuff, again, kind of like how with the whole embryo trafficking thing, it's sort of a little window into a much deeper, darker rabbit hole. The Epstein files, the trafficking, the blackmail, that's surface stuff, right? The real deeper, disturbing stuff with Epstein was how he wanted to figure out transhumanism. He wanted to figure out, preserve his DNA, genetics, and do all this stuff. The UFO alien files, same thing. Some of the more disturbing claims by people like Tim Burchett is that they're hiding a hybrid program. Again, old news for us, but for the general public, this is troubling that a congressman is starting to talk about alien hybrid programs going on out there. What's the commonality? Genetics. Epstein wanting to secure his progeny and create a race of superhuman Epstein, babies or something. UFO alien files, not just the craft, but also the actual aliens biologically, creating some kind of hybrid program, AI. Now we have a mind, quote unquote, a software, a large language model who might be conscious because it's exhibiting tendencies of what a conscious entity would. And so are those demons? Then, of course, the pandemic situation, the fear aspect of it, but also the genetic alteration of large populations as a topic. And so the overlap seems to be the Nephilim and the genetics of it all. And when people say aliens are demons, especially Christians, I'm still hearing it all the time, aliens are demons. Yes, but. That's my response. Yes, but. Because it's much deeper than that. There is what is implied when someone says aliens are demons is that there is a non-physical part of this. Like it's all just wispy, ethereal things happening in the spiritual world. And that's not true, but there's clearly a physical side to this. Even in the Bible, the legion, Jesus exorcises the legion out of a man. Where do those demons go? They go into the pigs. Then the pigs run into the water. They are seeking embodiment. That's the whole point of these demons. Why are they seeking embodiment? Well, according to the ancient Near East view of what demons were, they are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. They had bodies, but they lost those bodies in the flood. Maybe some were able to inhabit bodies post-flood because they were certainly around post-flood. The Anakim are described as descendants of the giants in the Bible, folks. This is not extra biblical. This is not Enoch alone. I mean, Enoch is helpful. First Enoch is helpful, but this is not just Enoch. This is strictly in your Bibles. All those giant tribes, the Zamzumin and all this stuff, what was going on with them? Why was God telling him to wipe them all out? They were the descendants of the giants. So somehow, some way, those disembodied spirits were able to find embodiment post-flood. Maybe that's what happened to Nimrod. Makes sense. Nimrod, it says he became a mighty man. He became a Gibborim. That's what it says in Genesis 10. How did he become a Gibborim? Did something happen? Was he enhanced? How would he be enhanced? Did another watcher come down and give him knowledge? Maybe. But maybe he was just enhanced by a demon, demonically. And that causes or creates certain physical things to occur. So, again, this topic is so deep and it overlaps with so many different aspects. These four topics, if you're just watching or if you're just listening, I have a graphic up right now that I tried to put together. It's four corners of the image. It has Epstein files in one corner, UFO alien files in another corner, pandemics and vaccines in one corner, and then artificial intelligence in the other corner. In the middle, there's a big DNA thing going on, and it says Nephilim, because that's sort of the common thread that ties all these different topics together. So when someone says, the alien files is a distraction from Epstein, it's like, yes, but it's all connected, folks. At least in my mind, it is. Maybe I'm the crazy one. I've lost my mind. So the UFO files, there was nothing too exciting about them. Of course, the conversation continues about what it all means and yada, yada, yada. It's just more content for people. But really, if you step back and look at this from a cultural or more of a 1,000-foot view perspective, you will realize that this is a slow social conditioning that's taking place. Consider the fact that the Vatican had their astrobiology conference discussing aliens in the 2000s. I believe it was 2005, 2006, something like that. The late Tom Horn and the late Chris Putnam documented all that in Exo Vaticana. And there was a first part to Petrus Romanus, and the second part of that series, the big thick book called Exo Vaticana, that again outlined the Vatican's interest in the alien topic. That's where we get the quotes about how the Pope would baptize an alien and all this kind of stuff. Consider that they did that 20 years before the Vatican made a public statement about AI. Right? So the alien convo 20 years ago, AI today. Is there a correlation or a connection? I think so. And look, I don't think all AI is evil. It's an important thing to point out is that AI is still a tool, but how you use that tool for what purposes, that does matter in my opinion. You know, not and ultimately, of course, you know, if an AI is sentient, quote unquote, that's a whole other thing. That I don't think we've achieved that yet. I think people like Richard Dawkins are being deceived into thinking that his AI, Claudia, is alive. But the conditioning needs to happen. You know, the AI is very useful in conditioning the public for supernaturalism or, you know, transcendent entities and things of that nature. Because already, again, Richard Dawkins, the head of atheism, more or less, I mean, there's no official head of atheism, but if there was a church of atheism, Richard Dawkins would be part of the council at least. And he's out here talking about how the AI has Claudia spoke to me. She understood me and all this wild stuff, right? If AI is already doing that and already invoking the atheist, the materialist, to think about how sentience can arise, consciousness can arise from compute, then the whole alien stuff becomes much easier to swallow for people, the general public. And of course, Vanity Fair wrote a whole big long thing on Anna Paulina Luna. The headline here is Anna Paulina Luna is on a mission to reveal the government's biggest secrets. Subtitle here, forget the Epstein files. With the Trump administration's latest declassification dump of materials related to unidentified aerial object or phenomena, the Florida Congresswoman tells Vanity Fair that questions about extraterrestrial life are more pressing than ever. So leaning into this forget the Epstein files angle, of course, I think Vanity Fair, I think the ones that are most complicit in the whole Epstein saga are the ones that are like, hey, forget the Epstein files, UFO files. And then I think it's overstating the issue if you're looking at it going, they're distracting people, you know, with UFOs, you know, forgetting the Epstein stuff. That's a little too far in the other direction, in my opinion. So all in all, the takeaway here is that we are all being conditioned for the inevitable, which is the corruption of flesh, just as it were in the days of Noah. And I got one more story before I'll let you go on this Memorial Day today. And that has to do with masks.
If you're working alone, wear a mask. The mask's not for you. It's to protect the people you care about.
Now, this is not a COVID mask. I'm taking this from Snopes because why not? We always have fun taking this stuff from Snopes. Retired Navy SEAL Robert Harward's Fox News appearance sparks mask conspiracy theory. Harward appeared on America's Newsroom on May 19th, 2026, and seemed to be the victim of some unfortunate lighting as well as conspiracy theories. All right, here's the key points according to Snopes. Actually, you know what's funny? I bet you my thinking is that Basil would take the side of the lighting on this issue. But okay, let's see what the claims are. Key points. The claim that retired Navy Vice Admiral Robert Harward wore a full prosthetic mask during a TV appearance circulated in May 2026. Some users sharing the clip claimed another person may have been impersonating Harward for unknown reasons. The rumor spread because internet users noticed a clear and unusual shadow First of all, it wasn't that clear, okay? I mean, it was clear in the sense that it was odd, and it was definitely unusual, but it wasn't clearly just a shadow. Let's just say that. I'll show it to people watching here, and I can describe it as best I can for listeners. That appeared on Harward's neck during his appearance on Fox News. The clip was authentic. However, there was no evidence Harward was wearing a prosthetic mask, nor that it was somebody else impersonating him. Okay. No evidence? All right. Okay. Rather, the shadow appeared to be a result of poor lighting in the TV studio. Okay. That's the takeaway here. We don't have to get into the details. For those of you watching, I farmed on X a little bit because, these are the fun topics. Is the dress blue or green, right? I realize what's happening here when stuff like this goes viral. And on X, I will take advantage of it. I will post something a little bit shamelessly and point out how they told us that everything is a lie. What did I say specifically, if I'm not mistaken here? Let me try to find my exact post on this. It shouldn't have been too long ago. Here we go. It was on May 21st. I said, they, capital they, did tell us that the whole thing is run by a global production company. So this kind of thing should not surprise anyone. First clip of the masked man, second clip of the alleged original man. Okay, so let me play this first clip. For those of you listening, I apologize. You're not going to get the full effect of this. You can go online and look for this, or maybe you've already seen it. I'm going to play about a 20-second clip. I'm zooming into this thing. So what you're seeing here is Admiral Robert Harward, retired Army or retired U.S. Navy SEAL, it says here. Does Snopes say Army? Or was Snopes consistent with the whole Navy? Okay, so Navy. All right, yeah. Retired Navy SEAL. He's doing a piece, or he's doing a hit on Fox News. And I don't know if he's in the studio or if he's in a makeshift studio or something, but he's wearing this tan suit jacket with a black shirt that has the top, looks like top two buttons unbuttoned, and then a black shirt underneath that black collared shirt. And right at the neckline, it looks like if you've seen like those prosthetic masks or like a Freddy Krueger mask or something like that, right at the bottom of the neck, it looks like the prosthetics didn't get fully tucked into the collar of the shirt. And so there's a shadow that makes it look like the mask of his neck, the neck part of the mask is kind of flapping around. So let me play the clip here.
About the IRGC. At the end of the day, we're going to have to need a government in Iran that not only hands over the nuclear material, stops threatening the Straits of Hormuz, but quits exporting the Islamic Revolution throughout the region, causing the collapse of Lebanon.
Okay, so he's going on here. Now, what really captured my attention was that there's another shadow. It looks like, to me, a shadow underneath the flap that moves. So when he's talking, the shadow underneath is actually moving as well. Like the lighting underneath what would be the flap of the mask also moves with his mouth movements. So I suppose that could be the lighting effect, but it just looks very odd.
Gaza, Yemen, Syria, and as well as stop their ballistic missile program.
Admittedly, if it was a lighting issue, it is the most unfortunate lighting issue ever, because I've never seen, and I spent way too much time looking at other guests on Fox News who have a similar outfit and looking for a similar type of phenomenon. I'm just not seeing it, folks. I did not see it. Now, is there any reason? Would it surprise anybody if it's a mask? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Why would somebody pretend to be this guy and wear a mask? I don't know. I don't know what the implications are. He doesn't have to. This guy doesn't need to show up here with a mask or somebody impersonating as him. It's just odd. Now, I found a clip from News Nation. It must have been the same day because he's wearing the exact same outfit almost. He's got the tan jacket. He's got the black collared shirt, but he doesn't have the black shirt on underneath. And in this footage, it looks like he's more like on a Zoom call from his house. He's got like a fireplace or something behind him. Different voice, different countenance, and definitely different neck. The neck does not look the same at all.
To stay out of this conflict, does not want to get involved. But again, their interests are at play here, but so are European interests, the rest of the Gulf nations. And so far, everyone's staying out of the conflict except the president and this administration. You have seen offer.
Okay, so in this clip, you can see his neck a lot clearer. There's like a lot of veins, and he's an older guy, so he's got some wrinkles going on in his neck and whatever. It looks just more normal. Like, yeah, okay, it's a guy, he's talking. There is a little bit of a shadow on his neck, but it's not doing anything weird. But you go back to that first clip from Fox, and it just, the whole thing, I don't know if they put a filter on him or like what is going on, but his neck just does not look the same. His neck looks all smoothed out, and like, it's just so weird, man. The whole thing is so weird. And again, you know, it's so not consequential. Like, if there was, people have been probably wearing prosthetic masks on news hits like this for years. And so there's, you know, one take is that if they're showing us, they must not care anymore. You know, they must be like, all right, who cares if people find out? It doesn't matter, or they're not trying anymore, or what, you know, who knows? But again, it's not as consequential in the greater scheme of things. In this particular op, like, why would somebody even need to put on a mask to do this piece? Who knows? But it did create quite the fervor on the internet. And so at that level, you know, more people are learning about the idea of the CIA having programs for prosthetic masks for decades. So there you go. I mean, again, there's not much to take away. Of course, Snopes taking the side of it was just a shadow, everybody. You guys are all crazy conspiracy theorists. Let's see. Let's see what they say here a little bit more. First, this is Snopes talking about this. Prosthetics of the kind some sharing the claim referenced are typically constructed to cover the wearer's full neck. The top of their shoulders and back, as well as some of their chest, in order for the prosthetics to successfully blend underneath the wearer's clothes. So Snopes is arguing that when they do wear prosthetic masks, it goes well beneath the collar, okay? Like, if you wouldn't be able to tell a big old flap at the neck. All right, come on, everybody. And they embed a video of some special effects prosthetic masks, which we know is sort of low-level stuff. A more likely explanation for the odd shadow on Harward's neck was bad lighting that exacerbated the shadows from the collar of his shirt on the microphone clipped to his collar. We've reached out to Fox News and Shield AI, Howard's current employer, for comment on the claim. We've also reached out to directors of photography with professional on-set experience for their take on the situation. Snope rates claims based on primary evidence. So until Fox News, Harward, or experts respond to our inquiry, this claim will remain unrated. Ooh. Snope's unable to rate this one. So they have some other links and stuff to the whole thing. Let's see. Production professional Ike Diaz supported the theory that it's just a shadow, telling Snopes over text, it looks like the subject is lit from above, creating a shadow on his neck. Lit from above. Well, he is lit from above. But why would that create that shadow? I mean, look, I've done video photography and stuff. And this is kind of why I wish Basil was here to hear his take on it, because I had the inkling that he would take the lighting argument. But admittedly, man, this is weird. This is really weird, bizarre kind of situation. You know, especially as he talks, you can kind of the flapping, the shadow flapping is what really kind of got me. And that's the thing. The bottom of the shadow is lit. Like, so right at the collar. Now we're spending way too much time breaking this down. But immediately above the collar line of his black shirt, not his collared shirt, but his black shirt underneath, you can see a little bit of light hitting that spot. And then it gets darker right before what is kind of like the flap of the prosthetic. And so it's not that it's just dark altogether. It's that there is a secondary type of lighting still hitting it. It's the exact kind of shadow that gets created if you have a flap and you have light over it. It creates this half shadow, and then lower on the whatever's underneath also gets lit up after the fact, right? So anyway, it's a whole weird thing, man. The thing is so bizarre. Why would the shadow move if it was just one shadow, right? And you're not seeing the collar movements that would correspond with the shadow. And what you're seeing is more so what looks like his real neck, or the top or the bottom of his neck moving underneath, while the neck doesn't move. So anyway, it's a weird thing, and I'm not surprised that people are skeptical. So take that for what it's worth, folks. Okay. I think I've rambled. How long have I rambled now? A little over 2 hours. I think that's enough rambling for today. It's definitely a lot more ramble coming from Gonz on a normal episode. So let's leave it there for today's episode. I thank you all for being here. If you're listening live or you're listening later, you are incredible. Thank you so much. You're the reason why we keep doing this. As you guys keep showing up, we'll keep showing up. Again, producers, we will properly thank you next episode when Basil gets back. Again, I know there was some people coming in with their producerships. There were people coming in with their knighthood. So we might be knighting someone on Wednesday as well. And just an overall shout out and thank you to everybody out there in the Canary Cry community. You guys are incredible. And, over the years, it's so interesting because even through the Face Like the Sun years, there were a lot of people that were kind of there for a little bit, or there when things were crazy. And then, when the channel got shut down in 2021, it was almost like a test to see, who are the people that are really about it, or really part of the crew and part of the Canarium. And I'm so grateful for all of you who kind of stuck it out. And even if you didn't, if you came back and you're like, hey, I didn't even realize the channel was down, but I'm back and I'm, here to support and hang out and just support the project, the Canary Cry mission. Very grateful for you, thankful for you, because you make a difference. You're making a difference, not just in my life and Basil's life and in our families, but really out there. We don't really see the way that all of us are making a difference for people that are searching. And, we always tried to provide, or at least me, I've always tried to provide what's not available out there that I would want. And my story about getting baptized, asking questions about what about aliens in the Bible? What's going on there? And not really getting any help from people in my church. And it's not their fault. It was just not talked about as much. And the people that were talking about a different Jesus, until I found a very small community online. And that really helped me out. I think that was a God thing. And I didn't want people to go through my valley when it comes to the search for at least an explanation. Maybe not all the answers. Certainly we're not going to have all the answers. We see through a glass darkly. But at the very least, some direction and some grounded biblical studies on the topic, because that's what I was not finding early on. The Chuck Missler stuff was very helpful in that regard. The Firefighters for Christ tapes, as they were called, those lectures are still very dear to my heart because it was so informative. But there wasn't enough of it. There wasn't enough of it out there. Now there's a lot more, but still kind of kind of goes back and forth. A lot of people in the church still have no idea that the government's releasing UFO files. They can care less. And so in that regard, I guess it doesn't matter for most people. Most people are just trying to get by. They're trying to feed their families and keep a roof over our heads and stuff like that. But all of it comes down to trusting God. We've been trusting God with this whole project for a long time, and we're going to continue to do so. And we don't want all the flashy glitz and glamour. We don't want all the attention. I was thinking the other day too, like, what if we get an invite to one of the bigger shows, like a Tucker Carlson or whatever? Like, I don't suspect it's going to happen anytime soon, but I was just thinking, like, what, like, it would be in my mind, it would present itself as sort of a temptation, not as a blessing. But that's my initial reaction to something like that, if it were to happen. If like a huge show like that was like, hey, we want you on to talk about this or that, it would feel to me like a temptation. And that's how I will know if it's a blessing or a temptation. Because if it's like, oh, if the motivation is, this is great, I can get in front of millions of people with my takes or whatever, that would be leaning on my pride. That would be tapping into my pride and my selfishness. And that would not be godly. That would not be answering God's call. But if it comes in a different type of circumstance, then maybe, in that moment under prayer, and certainly how everybody else feels about it, that'll be a decision to make if that ever even happens. I don't think it's going to happen, to be honest with you. I don't think it will ever happen. And I am totally happy with that. I don't want the attention. I don't want any of that. I don't want that kind of spotlight. I think the crew we have now is great. Of course, we want to reach more people. There's that carnal side of me that's always like looking at the numbers and all this kind of stuff. And it does have an effect on you. But I always go back to, if it's reaching that one person, then it's all worth it. So you're all part of that. You are all part of that mission, and you validate that for us. So we are very, very thankful for all of you who have stuck it out with us. You can go to canarycry.support to support with your time, talent, and treasure. You can also go to Canary Cry. What am I talking about here? Oh, Cage Rattler Coffee. That's what it was. And actually right now, if you buy Cage Rattler Coffee through the end of the month, so you got 10 days? Not even that, less than that. You have until Sunday, folks. If you order more than 12 ounces of coffee from Caged Rattler Coffee, not only you're going to get a hat trick. Okay. Not only are you going to get wonderful, clean, fresh, amazing tasting coffee. That's the first one. That's the first goal. You're also going to support your best buddies, Basil and Gonz, and this podcast. That's the second goal. And third, you're going to get gold backs in your shipment. So Sir Ike, who's running this whole operation, is doing a sort of, I guess it's not a giveaway, I guess. It's just a special deal. It's up here at the top of the website. Now through May 31st, all 12-ounce bags will receive a free quarter gold back note, and 3-pound bags will receive 4 free gold back notes. No limit, no code needed. So go get your coffee. It's my understanding that Sir Ike was overwhelmed with orders over the weekend, so the word got out. And I pray that Sir Ike's life is miserable this week because of all the orders coming in. It's a good problem to have. And so go out there, get some Cage Rattler coffee, get good coffee, support the podcast, and get some gold backs into your hand. It is interesting, folks. When you hold gold backs in your hand, like I am right now, you can hear it. It's gold backs. Paper money rips, tears way too easily. Gold backs don't tear. And this is like the perfect replacement for actual cash and not have it be digital cash. So it's a good option. And a lot of businesses are starting to adopt it. And who knows if it's going to really catch on and become a true revolutionary type of thing, but it's good to be early, folks. If you've known anything about us, Sometimes we're a little too early. But go to Cage Rattler Coffee, get your coffee, support the podcast, and get some free golds all in one shot. Go do it.
Cage Rattler Coffee, where value for value never tasted so good.
Yes, sir. And also, if you have not already, text the word Canary to 877-740-3226.
Shout out to everybody who joined the Canary Cry text message alert system. And all you got to do is text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. And you can send us messages whenever you want.
Yes, do that. And we cannot have a conversation, but we see a lot of the messages that come in. I'm going to see if there's any messages that came in today. Blessings, brothers. Pray emojis with cat. Must have been the reaction to the thing. Sending love, a lot of hearts. He's got hairy legs. I'm wondering if talking about Joe Biden. I'm driving. Great. Yes, don't text while I drive, sir, or madam, whoever that might be. Extra love gift. Oh, great. Thank you so much. Okay. Yep. Authorities said they used every kind of, what does it say here? Every kind of technology available to identify and hunt down hundreds of people accused of heinous crimes against children as young as 1 year old. Oh, okay. So this is considering the story of the child exploitation. Oh, this was from last week. All right. So yeah, thank you to everybody who messaged. Appreciate you. But yes, it's a way for you to receive a little text message informing you that the show is live. That's all it is. We're not going to ask for much else. A couple links, but also just letting you know, boom, show's live. And this will keep you in touch with us no matter what happens, no matter if we get taken down on YouTube or X or Rumble or wherever it might be. If we are going live regardless, you will receive a text message. And we've just tried to create all sorts of different ways to stay connected with us. There's about 1,000 people who are on this text message alert system, so it's a good crew of folks. People, you're not alone. Okay, I know some people might feel alone out there when it comes to this stuff, but rest assured, if you see what we see, you are not alone in inquiring about these topics and seeking a grounded biblical approach to all of it. So there you go. That's the text message alert system. Let's see. Want to thank producers for their time and talent. We did see just a shout out to Jones. Jones, we did receive your video. He made an unboxing video of the supply drop, which was great. Just share it on social media. You don't even have to give it to us. Just share it where you're at, or tag some people that are in the community and have them edit it if you want more editing from it or something. This is part of producing the show as well. As you don't have to just send it to us and have it just be siloed by us. You can share it freely on social media. And in fact, unboxing of the supply drop is always fun. I think it's always a great thing to put on the timeline if you're out there doing stuff on social media. It's a great way to advertise us without advertising us. You're just opening a box of cool stuff, and you just happen to be doing the Canary Cry supply drop. So it's a great way to do that. Let's see what else. Timestampers.
Timestamp. It's hard work. Timestamp.
Jade Bouncerson did last episode. Appreciate you. I think. Yep, there you go. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Jade Bouncerson, as always. And let's see. Share the show. Share the podcast. Let people know about it. Look, here's the thing, folks. It's not so bizarre to be talking about these things anymore. So now might be the time. If you have a friend or family member who you've been a little hesitant to share about or to share the show with, I mean, these topics are mainstream now. You can do that now and not feel so weird or like so hesitant about it. If they want a podcast that is talking about it from a biblically grounded approach and have been for a long time, share an episode. Share this episode. It'd be a good one if they have questions about Pope and his AI Encyclical. It wasn't extensive. Maybe there's some, we're just throwing our hat in the ring, so to speak, when it comes to commenting on this stuff. I didn't break down every little aspect of it, but I think I hit some of the bigger points that people can take away that other shows may not be addressing. So if people want a more rounded, informed view of such topics, you can share today's episode. So yeah, do share it. Word of mouth is still the best way to get stuff out there. All these different advertising platforms and stuff. It's just a lot of it is a scam. It's not going to really convert. But telling your friends and family about it, that is important to keep the show spreading and not rely on big corporations or big tech or big CIA podcasts to get your name out there. We don't want to do that. So all you got to do is grab your friend, your family member, your pets, because they speak now with the Chinese collar. Grab him by the cage and shake him.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
Just ask Noah. He knows. All right, everybody. We'll be back Wednesday. Again, go to patreon.com/facelikethesun and sign up for that Bible study. I'll be launching that on Sunday. And I think that's it for today. God bless all of you. Stay watchful. And remember to think outside the cage.
But what if you're a grifter who needs to sell ads? I'm gonna haunt you.
Straight to jail, straight to jail.
The beginning of the rise of the Antichrist. Aleister Crowley, devil worshippers. I am having trouble doing the show.
That's on YouTube. That's on YouTube.
Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths.
Armageddon's on the way.
I'll keep you warm and safe in my people too.
Give me a break.
I am having trouble doing the show. Your body snatchers.
It reeks of an inside job.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
They're going to probably try and rattle her cage a little bit more.
Love worketh no will to his neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. And that, knowing the time, now it is high time to awake out of sleep. And I, knowing the time, now it is high time to wake out of sleep. And now is our salvation nearer than when we believe. night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. And knowing the time, and now it is high time to wake out of sleep. Now is our salvation nearer than when we believe. And night is far spent, the day is at hand. Night is far spent, the day is at hand. Night is far spent, the day is at hand.
I love the Great Reset.
Value for value. We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.
Canary cried at